This is Obsidian ASMR. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future videos. Hey, and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super episode, where we're going to review the next phase of this stunning revival to the Dragon Ball franchise. As you're well aware, we like to go back and review or give a summary of what happened last time, and I talked you through the 2013 Battle of Gods film that I have very, very fond memories of, along with the initial 13 episodes of the Dragon Ball Super anime. Now it turns out that Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods was so successful, and I mean so successful, that they commissioned a whole new series. But because they're acutely aware that us fans don't like TV shows that don't have official manga storylines by Akira Toriyama, they'd learned from Dragon Ball GT. So, in an effort to get the series off the ground and quickly, but not to repeat the same mistakes of the past, they ended up redoing Battle of Gods in an episodic format, with the first initial 13 episodes that we talked about before, but there are some hangovers in this. I felt generally, apart from some poor animation at times, especially episode 5, which is quite infamous for it, that it allowed them to effectively expand on the story of Battle of Gods and give it some more depth that they couldn't fit in within a 90-minute movie. So, that is where we pick up with Beerus, the Destroyer, having to be calmed down because Majin Buu wouldn't share pudding with him. Having travelled to Earth, trying to locate the Super Saiyan God of his dreams, turns out it was Goku, with the help of Goten, Gohan, Trunks, Vegeta, and Pan, his yet-to-be-born granddaughter, still inside Videl. The fight had commenced and Goku could go seemingly toe-to-toe with Beerus, until Beerus revealed that he was only using a fraction of his full power. Goku had then lost the transformation, having become fatigued and exhausted, only for his body to remember, quite like Cell, the power levels that it had reached, and that intrigued Beerus enough to not destroy the Earth and think that there may be some merit in training Goku. find ourselves at part 2 of Dragon Ball Super, which will cover episodes 14 through to 26, so 12 episodes. And as always, we'll read the back. The animation stills on this look a lot better than the first part, I will say that. And I believe that they did really step the animation up for the series at this point. Although it's quite interesting because I don't think they ever took a break. So when it started through to when it ended, I think it was about a 3 or 4 year run. But the animation did get better and better and better as it went along, so they must have pulled in some more resource to keep it going. Anyway, an old enemy returns. After reaching an alliance with Beerus, the world is at peace once again. But one of the Z-Fighters is feeling restless, namely Vegeta. The Saiyan Prince seeks a new way to become stronger and wants to do so under Whis' guidance. When Goku finds out that they've left to train, he's just as eager to join in. While 2 of the strongest fighters train in another world, trouble stirs for planet Earth. The remains of a once powerful force have started to gather, seeking revenge for their fallen leader, the wicked overlord, Frieza. When evil takes on a new form, with the force of 1,000 troops, can go on, and the remaining Z-Fighters take him on. The first thing I'll say is, quite like the first part, or the first 13 episodes, this second batch of episodes, here from 14 to 26, is a retelling of another Dragon Ball movie called Resurrection F. And again, where I live, I went with one of my closest friends to go and see the movie in the cinema. We did have a very limited release over here in the United Kingdom, but we did get to see it on a big, big screen. It's one of my fondest memories with him. So, if he's watching, I doubt he is. Yeah, it was a good time. So, quite like, as I'm saying, the first batch of episodes, this is all an expanded retelling. But, again, we will go through it. As you can see on the back here, you've got Goku, Vegeta again in his Whis training outfit, Bulma, Krillin with hair. It turns out that he just waxes it, or cuts it really, shaves it off or whatever, and then waxes it. So, yeah, he does have a head of hair. And then the big guy himself, Frieza. And of course, as the thumbnail suggests, this is Golden Frieza. But we'll get onto that in the episode, the detail. This is the last one I actually had on DVD, and it is something that I love looking at stuff like that. I know that this is actually old DBZ Doga, I think it is, but yeah, I love seeing the pencil drawings. I think it's Doga. It could be, because they've smoothed it all off, haven't they? It could be a remnant from the Battle of Gods side of things. Anyway, so we start off with "This is all the power I've got," a settlement between the gods. So continuing to fight despite being limited to just his Super Saiyan form, Goku does get knocked out by Beerus. And during that time, while Goku is non-cognizant, Beerus So, with that Kamehameha, Goku does manage to prevent Beerus' attack, but, apologies, but does completely deplete his remaining energy in the process, which is kind of, it feels like a back and forth with this, that he gets his power back, then he loses it, then he gets his power back, then he loses it, then he gets his power back, then he loses it, but I guess that makes sense when you're going up against a god of destruction. So this time, he's not knocked out or anything, but he does go crashing back down to Earth onto Bulma's ship, where Vegeta manages to catch him. Beerus follows suit and lands shortly after to honour his promise of destroying the Earth should he win, which he did, probably like 3 times. But wouldn't you guess it? Luck has it that that's actually tired him out, and he suddenly falls asleep, to the surprise of many. So Whis explains that Goku did tire him out, and takes the God of Destruction back to their homeworld, assuring the group that Beerus would have likely forgotten about their trip to Earth. But Beerus is, again, a swerve on top of a swerve on top of a swerve. Beerus is actually pretending to sleep at this point. Because, as I said at the start, he'd realised that the Super Saiyan God transformation ritual had only unlocked a tiny, tiny portion of Goku's untapped potential, while not wishing to admit his satisfaction of finding a worthy adversary. And also, he's a big fan of Earth cuisine, so he wanted to have a little bit more to eat. So there you go, the conclusion of Battle of Gods. The Earth is safe again, Goku can relax, and so can everybody else. Until episode 15, where, as you would imagine it, valiant Mr. Satan work a miracle, a challenge from outer space. This is more of a filler episode from what I remember, but it can be summarised as Earth is safe, as we know. So everybody's back to what they were doing at the start of this mini Battle of Gods well, not mini, but this Battle of Gods retelling, going about their ordinary lives. So Goku goes back to being a radish farmer in honour of his brother Raditz. Chi-Chi having goaded him or put pressure on Goku to win them as much money as he can, and I think he did. He got them 100 million zeni. She spent it, or spent the majority of it. Sounds like a lot like my partner. But she's also saying that Goku needs to become a role model for Pan, their unborn grandchild, which I never really understood when that came out, because ultimately, shouldn't Goku have been the role model for Gohan and Goten? You know, shouldn't it be down to Gohan to be the role model for Pan at this point? I don't know. I guess grandparents do have an influence, and I guess Goku is still technically the patriarch of the family, and I know he ages at a slower rate than humans do, but nonetheless, I would have thought it would be Gohan that would need to step up to the plate, which, by the look of things, he was anyway, so that's an aside. But yet again, that lovable rogue, Mr. Satan, has taken all the credit for defeating Beerus, predictably. But due to Beerus's very, very high profile as a god of destruction for this universe, alien ambassadors from planet Snack came to give their gratitude, along with their champion, Galby. And wouldn't you know it, Galby challenges Mr. Satan to a fight. So Satan at this point is scared, because obviously the whole thing is it's a facade, it's a false pretense that he is the saviour of the planet, and this all goes all the way back to the Cell Saga, where Mr. Satan was introduced as comedic relief to a very emotionally heavy storyline. So, as you would expect, he searches for somebody to bail him out and to keep the facade going. So he tries to call Gohan, who obviously is married to his daughter, Videl, Mr. Satan's daughter, Videl. But he can't get hold of Gohan. So he turns to Goku, who just happens to appear at the scene. But Chi-Chi isn't happy with Goku fighting, because she wants him to be this great example to their grandchild, even though the grandchild isn't born yet. So that forces Mr. Satan to deal with Galby by himself to maintain this image. Luckily for Mr. Satan, these aliens from the planet Snack are revealed to be syncophobic. Or sinophobic, I think is the way that you pronounce it, which is basically they have a irrational fear of dogs. And if you were paying attention during my Dragon Ball Z What Happened series, you'd remember that Majin Buu and Mr. Satan have a dog called B. So they spot B and they run off. And that's the episode. Great filler. But at least it isn't the Garlic Jr. arc. So episode 16, which is Vegeta becomes a student, a win over Whis, carries on, where Goku and Krillin are doing farm work. Or rather Goku is, and Krillin turns up and finds him sleeping on the job. And is kind of surprised that he hasn't left and continued his martial arts training like Master Roshi always told them to, and then they go on this kind of reminiscent journey of their childhood, and it's a way to tell that story to a new, younger generation of viewers who may or may not have seen those original series and seen the journey from, Kid Goku all the way through to the Goku that we know today. So you see a lot, you see some flashbacks of like the training with Master Roshi and whatnot. And then Krillin says to Goku, who was his rival at the time, to punch him to tell the difference, or to help gauge the difference between the two power levels of the two fighters and best friends. Goku doesn't really want to do it, but Krillin is really, really insistent. So Goku does. And as you can imagine, Krillin goes absolutely flying into the distance, and eventually hitting a well-placed Dragon Ball boulder. So Goku finds him and then brings him to his house with Android 18, martial arts anymore. And it kind of has inspired him to start training again, seeing the disparity between the two of them when once they were so close. A touching message, I guess, that it's never too late to start or to restart a hobby, and one that I very much take into account, with my own training regimen and other hobbies outside of ASMR. It's never too late. Don't let anybody tell you it is. So, back to the story. Vegeta is training in a wasteland. Or rather he was, and then he goes back to Capsule Corp. Where he learns that Bulma and Whis have been going on lunch dates together, so that Bulma can show Whis Earth cuisine, so that he can replicate it and kind of, dissuade Beerus from destroying the Earth. So, Vegeta then overhears that Whis is Beerus's fighting instructor, and obviously wanting to become the strongest, which has always been Vegeta's motivation, he requests that Whis train him in exchange for some of the tastiest food that Earth has to offer. Whis tentatively accepts, but only on the condition of the food being brought to him. And Vegeta tries a number of different dishes, but Whis isn't interested until they get to Bulma's own personal brand of instant noodle cups, which does the trick. It's then when Bulma presents him, or Vegeta, with a new battle suit that she'd been preparing, which is the one that we see on the back here. This one. Which is quite nice and fitting, because she redesigned the old one based on the schematics that she had, or the samples that she had of the Saiyan armor or Frieza armor from the Saga. And it's a subtle way of Bulma showing that she supports Vegeta, and she loves him, and she is effective in a weird way. She's his armor in battle, and we saw in the previous episode how much Bulma means to Vegeta, whether he likes to show it or he doesn't. So it's a very nice reciprocal relationship that they have going there. So effectively that's the end of that episode, and Vegeta goes with Whis to start training on Beerus' planet. Then we move to episode 17. Pan is born, and Goku goes on a training journey, ? So some of you might be a bit confused, because at the end of Dragon Ball Z, Pan is a character, and she's probably about 3 or 4. And you're right, that does happen. But what you've got to remember is the events of Dragon Ball Super are supposed to have taken place between the time skip from the end of the Martian Buu arc to the final episode. So all of this is supposed to take place in those 10 years. Initially anyway, I think they go past that at one point. But for continuity's sake, that's why there. So, as the title suggests in this episode, Pan is born. And effectively, Chi-Chi, quite like she did with Gohan, does not want Pan to be a martial arts fanatic like Goku. But all of the other Z fighters are trying to change her mind about it, Whis, which is a revelation for Goku, and he's like, what? How did I not know? Or where was my invite? So, what occurs next is basically like, are we there yet? You know, are we there yet? 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 Between Goku and Bulma, where he keeps asking if Whis has returned. Which leads Bulma eventually to give him a cell phone to tell him to back off, you know, use this, contact me on this. So, Whis does turn up, and Goku immediately approaches Whis during that outing as soon as he receives a phone call from Bulma on this cell phone. And rather quickly, Whis agrees to Goku's request to be mentored. Kind of adding the two Saiyans together, which is fantastic, and how it should be really, because they are. I think they work best together, they balance each other out quite well. But just as the two of them are about to leave, Chi-Chi turns up, having learned through Gohan that Goku was about to go, or trying to go and join Vegeta. And she tries to stop him, saying, think of Pan, I told you you've got to be a good influence on her. But Goku, never one to be tied down, leaves anyway with Whis, and kind of leaves Chi-Chi in despair. But this isn't the first time this has happened, and she knows that eventually he will be back. And that's what happens in that episode. So episode 15, 16 and 17 have kind of been filler. Kind of. And I think episode 18, I'm Here Too, Training Commences on Beerus' World, is also very similar with that. So, but I think this is where it starts to pick up from here. So, as the title suggests, Goku and Whis arrive on Beerus' planet, where Vegeta is currently keeping the house clean. He is the housekeeper. The maid in some, you know, a bit like Levi from Attack on Titan, that kind of vibe. So, at this point in time, Vegeta is seemingly the stronger of the two Saiyans because of his head start with training under Whis. So, Goku, not wanting to be second best and secretly being as competitive as Vegeta is, gets to work straight away. But in order for that to happen, and for his training to continue, Whis says that both Goku and Vegeta have to carry out some household chores that include changing Beerus' bed sheets without waking him up. They get to work. Obviously, there's some near misses and typical Dragon Ball Z hijinks that are involved. But when the training does actually come round, it's clear that Goku is absolutely shattered, worn out, because he falls asleep with relative ease. Meanwhile, you see what difference the head start's made, because Vegeta is still good to carry on. And carry on he does. So that's the end of that day, but the following morning, Whis decides to have a sparring match between the two. terms of their speed. Neither Goku nor Vegeta can get anywhere near Whis. Can't even land a single hit on him, let alone have a proper fight. So they are way off the pace. But the focus then shifts to somewhere in space, where surviving members of Frieza's army are led by Sorbet. They continue their efforts, as it's revealed, to resurrect their leader, who obviously met his fate at the hands of future Trunks on Earth. And then there's this kind of like shadowy or mysterious end to the episode where, if I remember rightly, just these two weird beings that we never really get a good look at are searching for something, and they end up kind of like destroying the planet. But it's all very vague and you don't really see. But, you know, it sets the intrigue up, doesn't it? So then we officially move in to the Frieza, or Golden Frieza Saga, with episode 19, which is Despair Redux, the return of the evil Emperor Frieza. So, in essence, this episode, you've got Goku and Vegeta that are not freezing, but they are continuing their training with Whis on Beerus' planet. But this episode is heavily focused around Frieza and where he's at. So, quickly, the whole focus is on Sorbet, the new leader, or the interim leader of the Frieza Force, with his assistant Togamo. I can't pronounce his name right. It takes me a couple of times. Togama. That's it. And effectively, they can't find new Namek. Obviously, old Namek was blown up by Frieza, but they're looking for the Dragon Balls, so they do know that the Dragon Balls are on Earth. Obviously, they need them in order to resurrect Frieza. When they do arrive on Earth, they run into the Pilaf gang, who had successfully, for once, or second time, collected all 7 Dragon Balls already, and were just about to use them. But Sorbet coerces Pilaf into summoning Shenron. When Sorbet kind of jumps in and says, resurrect Frieza, Shenron turns around and says, well, it would be futile to do so because his body was cut into, he was cut into little chunks by future Trunks. But Sorbet and Togama both insist, and effectively Togama is like their doctor or health expert, so he's pretty sure that they could use the technology that they have now, but they didn't have at the time, to restore Frieza to full health. So the two wish for Frieza to be resurrected and then carry all of his pieces back into the ship, where as Mai and Shu of the Pilaf gang have used up the remaining wishes, because now the dragon, if you remember, grants 3 wishes, not 1. So very, very quickly they put these pieces of Frieza back into their healing machine, and lo and behold, he is regenerated. There he is, he's back. So episode 20, which is a warning from Jacko. Frieza and their 1,000 soldiers close in. This carries on effectively from where we left off in the last one, where Frieza is just detailing what he had to go through in Hell, and his desire, burning passion to get revenge on both Goku and future Trunks. Tagoma effectively objects to Frieza's plans for revenge, bearing in mind that Frieza's just been resurrected and he's not at full power yet, but Frieza kills him pretty quickly. The problem is, Frieza doesn't know what's happened since future Trunks killed him at the beginning of the Android Saga, and a lot, as you know, has happened. So he finds out, and people inform him that Goku is ridiculously stronger in comparison to when they last had their match on planet Namek, which is when Frieza reveals that he's never really trained a day in his life, and it's all been like natural potential that got him to the level that he was at, which is a scary concept. And he says that if he were to train, he would get a lot stronger very, very quickly, which I think is true. So he sets about training. 4 months go by before the plan starts. Only 4 months of training. Just to put that into perspective, it's been like years worth of struggle and content for us as viewers to watch Goku get to the point that he's at, but it took Frieza in world only 4 months. So it's quite nice actually to see them recycle Frieza as a villain. I don't think you could do it with everybody, but it was nice to see him back like this, and it was very nice to see him in the cinema. Because a lot of this stuff that I've already explained through 14 to episode 17, that wasn't in the film. It started basically at the tail end of episode 19 through to what we're seeing now. So Frieza decides after those 4 months of training to head to Earth, but he is beaten there by Jacko, the Galactic Patrolman, who is a character from one of Akira Toriyama's other manga series. So it's actually quite cool that there's a crossover here, although quite similar to Arale from Dr. Slump, I think, in the original Dragon Ball anime/manga. I don't know whether it was in the manga, but it definitely was in the anime. But Jacko finds Bulma and tells her that Frieza has been revived and he's heading for Earth with an army of 1,000 soldiers. So Bulma, startled by the news, obviously goes and gathers the remaining Z fighters that are on Earth and able to defend the Earth, to try to head off the army until Goku and Vegeta are done with their training and make it back to Earth to send Frieza packing. Bearing in mind that they think Frieza is still the same power level that he was before, it should be enough for Piccolo and Gohan especially to be able to deal with him, but what they don't know is that he's been training. So episode 21, the start of vengeance, the Frieza forces Malice strikes Gohan. Frieza arrives and he's met by Gohan, Piccolo, Krillin, Master Roshi, Tien, or Tien Shinhan, and Jacko. That should be, on the face of it, more than enough to beat Frieza, and especially the 1,000 troops. And I have to say, again, in the cinema, it was awesome to see all of these characters that didn't necessarily get as much screen time at the end of Dragon Ball Z become somewhat relevant again. Frieza does a typical kind of monologue about that he wants revenge and he wants to face Goku and where is he and all that kind of stuff. But he's nowhere to be seen, so rather than get his hands dirty, Frieza orders his army to attack the Z Fighters. I mean, you know, as you would imagine, the Frieza force is nothing in comparison to the Z Fighters now. And even Krillin, who a couple of episodes ago was lamenting that he, you know, hadn't fought in years and needed to train again, he dispatches them with ease. Which, all of this really kind of annoys Frieza, who then turns to Sorbet and says, "Send out your elite soldier, Shisami, to take out Gohan." Suddenly, out of nowhere, Takuma fires a beam at Shisami and Gohan, which kills Shisami and really, really badly injures Gohan. This takes the Frieza force and Sorbet especially by surprise, because they didn't think that Takuma had any of that in him. But he'd managed to hone his skills to this degree by training with Frieza. So, Frieza, having seen this, now says if Takuma can take out all of the Earthlings, he can command the Frieza force instead of Sorbet. Obviously, that is a exciting prospect for Takuma, or anybody that wants or is part of an army to be put in charge, I guess. So obviously he accepts and starts to fight the Z Fighters. While all of this is happening, Goku and Vegeta have absolutely no clue that it's happening, because Whis sent them to train in a pocket dimension at the request of Beerus. So we move to episode 22, Change and an Unexpected Return. His name is Ginyu. I loved this. I'm not really sure how this didn't make it into the movie itself, but I thought this was a really, really nice nod to the original Dragon Ball Z series and storylines with Frieza, and it made perfect sense as well, because at the end of that, Ginyu, trapped in a frog, and travelled with the Earthlings and the Namekians back to Earth as Namek exploded. We don't know whether the frog, to my recollection, had stayed on Earth or had gone back to Namek when New Namek was created, along with the other Namekians, but assuming that this is correct, the frog stayed on Earth. And I think, as I say, I think this is a lovely, lovely little bit of nostalgia, and a bit of, unexpected joy from this series, to be honest. I really wasn't expecting this when I saw it. So, Takuma powers up, and obviously is very cocky, bearing in mind he's basically just seriously injured Gohan. Piccolo, similarly, is completely and utterly outmatched, and Gohan tries his best. And since, like this, obviously he's very protective over Piccolo, sends Takuma, flying for several yards, etc. The blast did nothing. It just pushed him to the side a bit. effectively, like, he recounts and says that the training with Frieza was so intense that it's made him super strong and almost invulnerable. So, out of nowhere, like Randy Orton, who's just returned to WWE, which is a big thing for me, arrives and headbutts him. Takuma. I can't get that name right. Basically in his crotch, in his sensitive area. Before immediately then turning back into Goten and Trunks. Frieza obviously has not been around to meet Goten or Trunks, but he recognises Trunks and assumes that Trunks is the son of future Trunks, which obviously isn't the case. They're the same person, it's just future Trunks is from the future. But then the real star of the episode appears, which is Captain Ginyu, still trapped in the frog, the Namekian frog that Vegeta threw in the way of his change beam when he tried to hijack Goku's body. Oh no, it was the other way around. Goku chucked the frog in the way of his change beam when he tried to hijack Vegeta's body, that's right. Effectively, he body swaps with Takuma and, gets really, really frustrated and, or rather vents about all of the stuff that he's had to go through since the Namekian Saga and, how he's had to put up with all the various deaths and, villains that have come and tried to destroy the Earth, Boo, Cell, that kind of thing. But he is very quick to understand Takuma's body and the immense power that it gives him. So, while this is all going on, Bulma is trying to contact Whis, which Jacko doesn't really understand. Gohan attempts to battle Ginyu, now in Takuma's body, but effectively, once Gohan goes Super Saiyan, that's the end of the game. He does show mercy to Ginyu. Effectively, that enraged Frieza because it reminded the mercy that Gohan showed Ginyu reminded Frieza of the mercy that Goku showed him on Namek after beating him in the fight, and causes Frieza to send quite a few death beams toward Gohan. But as usual, Piccolo at the last minute steps in to save Gohan. And then we move to episode 23, which is Earth. Gohan, both on the ropes. Hurry and get here, Goku. So, as you would expect, Piccolo dies by taking the full brunt, I should say, of Frieza's death beams, which he did save Gohan, but, he's dead again. I think this is like the third or fourth time he's died. So, we quickly go to Beerus' planet, where we learn that Beerus has got like an obsession for pizza, and to be honest, who doesn't? It was a great invention from the Romans, so thank you for that. But Goku and Vegeta have eaten all of his reserves of pizza that were in the pocket dimension. This is when Bulma's invitation for a strawberry sundae gets through to Whis, and along with it, the message that Frieza has come back to Earth and Piccolo has died. Whis accepts the invitation and then relays the message to Goku and Vegeta. But effectively, the trip to Earth would take a while, so they say, but Goku turns around and says, well, I can do instant transmission. But it turns out he can't because the distance is too large. There is a way for Goku to do it, if I remember correctly, but it required a major energy signature for him to lock onto, and I think they get Gohan to do it, by powering up to his absolute maximum, which works, and just as is typical of Dragon Ball in the nick of time, they arrive to save Gohan, and Vegeta executes Ginyu, so Ginyu is no more, he's gone. Ginyu, by the way, is Japanese for milk, and what you might realise is all of these Frieza Force henchmen, for want of a better phrase, or generals, whatever you want to call them, are all dairy products. Ginyu, sorbet, obviously, is a type of ice cream, and I think Tagoma is as well, I think. Could be wrong. I feel like it's also a type of sushi, but I think it's egg sushi, isn't it? Tagoma. Maybe. Who knows? If you know, let me know in the comments below, or I'll Google it after this. Yeah. So, Goku and Frieza lock eyes for the first time in ages, and Frieza immediately goes from his base form to his final form that we know, which is the golden form but white. The form that he was during the end of the Namekian Saga, or Frieza Saga as it was called. So, that powering up effectively kills all of the remaining Frieza Force apart from Sorbet, because Sorbet is moved to a far distance. But Goku doesn't understand. And no, sorry, I think this is at the point where he does go into his golden Frieza stage. But yeah, Goku's like, okay, let's go then. And then we move into episode 24. Clash, Frieza vs Goku. This is the result of my training. So Goku and Frieza begin their battle, and they fight on even ground, with neither one able to inflict significant damage on the other, so they're evenly matched. And again, I want to highlight this is after 4 months of training by Frieza and years of training by Goku. So I like that. It seems it gives Goku a real foil as a villain. Really good writing, I like that. So, because Frieza is getting a bit miffed that he isn't crushing Goku immediately, he basically starts attacking Krillin and Bulma. Obviously, Goku tries to save them, but the ploy works because Goku's focus is split. So Frieza then can land several blows on Goku without being countered or blocked. Whilst Frieza is kind of, dominant in the fight with Goku, Vegeta gets impatient. And yeah, it gets involved. And effectively he's like, come on, stop messing around, instead of talking at each other, just get to the point. So they both both, as in Goku and Frieza, that is. So the two of them power up to their maximum. And Goku at this point turns into a new version of the Super Saiyan God, which is, the first time that we ever see this transformation, but we get more of an explanation of what it is in episode 25, which is a full throttle battle, the vengeful Golden Frieza. And I'll try and do this as quickly as I can. So at the beginning of this, obviously Goku explains that what he's turned into is effectively the Super Saiyan equivalent for a Super Saiyan God. So if you think of Super Saiyan God as the base form Saiyan, Super Saiyan would be the next step up, which is again quite fitting and a nice little narrative parallel between the original series and this. In order to defeat Frieza in the original Dragon Ball Z series, Goku had to attain the form of Super Saiyan, whereas here he's had to attain the form of Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, or as the fandom call it, SSGSS, or Super Saiyan Blue. You with me? Or Super Saiyan God Blue. Okay, got it. Gets a little bit complicated there. Well done. So I was wrong. This is where Frieza unveils his golden form. Yeah, that's jogged my memory. Before this it was just normal base Frieza from Namek, so the white one. This is where Golden Frieza comes in. So, effectively they both acknowledge that, they both come a long way, and then they regain or re-engage in the fight. While that's going on, Whis informs Bulma of their arrival on Earth, as in Beerus and Whis will be arriving on Earth in a few minutes. But they get stalled or interrupted along the way by Universe 6's destroyer, Champa, and his attendant, Vados. Okay. So, Champa is obviously a form of champagne. And Vados, I'm pretty certain, is translated to Calvados, which is a form of French brandy. So you got wine, Whis, and Vados, Calvados. So again, another alcoholic beverage. The two destroyers and attendants have a kind of conversation before Beerus and Whis arrive on the battlefield. That section is not in the Resurrection F movie at all. They just turn up. You don't see Champa, you don't see Vados. They hadn't been invented as characters. So while eating Bulma's delicious desserts, upon arrival, Beerus and Whis notice that Frieza has become significantly stronger than what they remembered, and also that Goku is having a really tough time keeping up with him. This is because Goku hasn't really kind of mastered his Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, or Super Saiyan God Blue form yet, because it's new. So, Frieza being a bit of a prodigal son at fighting and, being able to reach these heights with relative ease compared to most, has a lot more prowess and speed. And effectively gains the upper hand that way, which leads us on to the last episode for today's video, which is 26. A chance appears in a tight spot. Launch a counter-offensive, Goku. So this won't be the end of the Golden Frieza story or the Resurrection F storyline, as we found with the Battle of God storyline in the previous one, but the battle continues, and it is one-sided than it was, with Frieza really taking the upper hand. Goku's effectively trying to withstand or dodge the attacks here rather than go on the offensive himself. But they do notice, both Goku and Vegeta at this point, that Frieza, whilst he is incredibly good and powerful and speedy and got fighting prowess, he is losing stamina, and that the longer the fight goes on, the more his power level is dropping. Something that in the midst of all the excitement and all the various emotions that no doubt he is feeling at that point in time, plotting and scheming about this revenge for literal years in hell, Frieza has not managed to notice. So, Vegeta basically orders Goku to quickly finish Frieza off before he regains his stamina, gets a second wind. And he also gives him a bit of an ultimatum, because he knows Goku likes to draw fights out and get the best out of his opponent before beating them. So Vegeta says, either you do it or I'll do it. So this leads to Goku and Frieza exchanging some sarcastic banter between one another, kind of like insults and quips, that kind of thing. Before, again, they power up and continue with the fight. Nothing's really changed. Frieza still is in control. But this time Goku has a strategy, because he knows he effectively just has to stay in the fight long enough until Frieza starts to lose his stamina and thus control of the fight again. So, that's what he does. He goads Frieza into launching various large-scale attacks that drain his stamina very, very quickly, quite like in the video games. And it's at that point that Frieza realises what's happening and what his weakness is. This lack of endurance. In order to maintain his golden form, he really needs to work on that, because it's basically using more energy than Frieza himself at that point in time can muster in a moment. So there's not a surplus, but a loss in that calculation, I guess, if you're going to make it scientific. So, being exhausted, Goku now does what you would expect, which is explain to Frieza why this is the case, and it's a bit of exposition that is more aimed at the audience, I guess, rather than Frieza himself, because it makes, these two fighters are tacticians and exceedingly good fighting tacticians, so they wouldn't need to explain this to one another, I guess. But anyway, effectively, it's because of Frieza's eagerness and lack of patience that he hasn't fully mastered the golden form that he's fighting in yet, quite like Goku with the Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan form. So he basically needed to wait before launching this counter-attack or assault on Goku in order to get his vengeance. He was too eager, too blinded by his bloodlust to actually think properly and strategically about the strengths and weaknesses of this new form. A bit too cocky, I guess. Obviously, Frieza is not happy that his chance for vengeance has failed. So he turns to Sorbet and he effectively mouths something to him, for effectively calling for assistance, but low-key. So Goku at this point says, "Leave Earth," quite like he did on Namek, and grants Frieza mercy. pierces Goku's chest from behind, and that was fired by Sorbet's ray gun. Frieza gets up and effectively starts stomping on Goku's chest, where he's just been shot, forcing Goku to scream out in pain and agony while Frieza gloats about the backup strategy that he had in place should Goku let his guard down like he did to give us more exposition. This is why you shouldn't give exposition in anime fights. Conversely, and quite ironically for the situation, Frieza says that it's Goku's overconfidence that prevents him from being the strongest fighter in the world, not Frieza, which I think is a strong case of the pot calling the kettle black. But just before Frieza can exact his vengeance, long-awaited vengeance, and kill Goku, Vegeta steps in, fires a ki blast at Frieza, and announces that it is his turn to fight. And that is where we will leave it for today and for this week. But in true Dragon Ball Z fashion, or Dragon Ball Super fashion I should say, tune in next week for another exciting episode of what happened in Dragon Ball Super. But before we go, I do want to say a massive thank you, as always, to each and every one of you that tune into these videos. Give it a like, drop your comments below. It's all incredibly appreciated, and I cannot put into words, although I try my best, how much it means to me that you all enjoy these videos, and you all enjoy this little hobby that I started 2 years ago. I appreciate that I'm not the biggest, and we're still on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so if you did like the content, maybe consider joining the crew. We'd love to have you here. But effectively, it's a blessing that I can do this and that you all enjoy it. And I count my lucky stars, like that one, every time I get to put one of these videos out, or I see one of your comments, or one of you likes the videos enough to subscribe. I'm really, really proud of this little community, and I can't say it enough. So, apologies if it's a little bit cringe, but I really am thankful for all of you, and I mean all of you. So, from the bottom of my heart to yours, thank you. And with that, all that's left for me to say is, as always,